Welcome. Hi, my name is Brandie Zucker, and I am the host of Let's Zuck It Up, the Zuck It Up podcast where we zuck things up. And yeah, so this is my podcast, and what inspired me to do this podcast is actually sort of an experiment. Um, I I'm currently in the process of letting go of a lifelong addiction to my screens, to my phone. I've used my phone to escape from myself, my thoughts, to distract myself from reality. And luckily, what's been going on is when I go on to use my phone, a lot of the people I follow are people who inspire me to break habits, including Julian himself, and I love him so much. And a fun fact, he once made a post where he said, disagree with me in this comment, and then I sent him something like that I disagreed with. And then after I sent it, I felt so bad because I felt like I was only saying that because he told me to, but like I don't know if I actually meant it or not. Anyways, the video that I came across that he posted was a video where every day for 1 week you just sit in front of a camera and you record a 1 hour podcast just of you talking and saying whatever comes up. You don't have to post it. You can if you want. I'm going to post mine. And I'm going to do this every day for 1 week. And it's going to be really interesting to see what I learn about myself. Um, One thing that I've been doing every morning for the past 2 years is journaling every single morning. I journal 3 pages every single morning because I realize that my mind is one of those minds where it loves to reminisce and find solutions and understand, and it's always trying to solve problems. And because my mind is always trying to make peace within myself and within my environment and with other people, um, it's always going, going, going. And I realize this when I'm journaling, how sporadic my journal entries are, and uh, the things I reminisce about, the things that are on my mind. And through journaling every day, it's taught me to become more and more conscious of what it is I put my thoughts and energy into. And it's an ongoing process, becoming more conscious about what you think about. Like, for instance, right when I just said that, I'm like, I wonder how many people are tapping out of what I'm saying right now. And like, sometimes I feel like when I talk, I feel like my my mind is thinking about something else while my words are saying something else. Like, I think I sometimes feel like I'm disconnected from what I speak about. Like I'll be talking, but then my mind will be thinking about something else, and then sometimes I feel like I'm two people in one body, and then I just have to take a pause, and then I'm like, wait, what just happened? What am I even saying? What am I even doing? So that's why I'm doing this podcast. And I also want to better my social skills. I realized that I'm not in a lot of social situations very often. And when I am in social situations, sometimes I almost feel like I'm counting down the minutes of when the interaction is over, because I'm so used to being alone that I found a lot of comfort in being alone and being by myself, that when I am with other people, I I absorb who they are. I can sense what their struggles are. I can sense what they're thinking about, and because I'm so emotionally sensitive to people, it's it's hard for me to be around people a lot, and I just find a lot of comfort being on my own. at the current moment, I'm with my two dogs, Tucker and Lana, and I've been talking to them a lot. I love talking to my dogs because my dogs hold space for me. My dogs don't judge. My dogs don't voice their opinions. And my dogs give me freedom. And I would love if the world could give me freedom. And I believe in order for the world to give me freedom, I need to give myself the same freedom that my dogs give me, even though they are very bossy and needy and need attention. They hold space for me and my emotions and my thoughts and my worries and my fears and my joy. And my dogs love all parts of me. And it's so cool because when my dogs love all parts of me, it inspires me to love all parts of me. And it inspires me to, my dogs inspire me because it makes me care less about what people think of me. For instance, my female dog Lana, she has like the worst breath in the entire world. Okay, first let me get this straight. I share my dogs with my parents. These are not fully my dogs. I'm not saying that I'm in charge of her bad breath, and I do what I can to make sure her breath is good. But for instance, she doesn't give a fuck that she is the worst breath in the world. She owns it, and she's so confident in all of her flaws, and it inspires. I'm not saying that I have bad breath, but it just inspires me to be confident in all of my flaws too. And this crystal. For those of you who are listening, I'm holding a crystal that I found. I don't know what kind of crystal it is, and it's not a perfect crystal, but it's a beautiful crystal, and it has beautiful energy. I also wanted to just talk about what happened last night. So last night was my performance at the Delancey in New York City, and I gave a really good performance. I felt so. So my sister was the only person who came to see me technically. So I didn't. Okay, first of all, I didn't know that you could have people as a guest list. I didn't realize. So they said when I checked in, the owner was like, not the owner, but the guy who was managing the front door was like, do you want to guest list anybody? And I was like, yeah, I want to guest list my sister. And then as I was sitting in the Delancey setting up all my stuff, I get 5 text messages from people who I invited, and they all said that they couldn't make it. The people who I believed that were gonna be there just told me they couldn't make it. And then I felt really desperate at that moment because I wanted at least 15 people to show up on my end, and my sister was the only person on my end who showed up at the Delancey. But I'm gonna be honest, okay, I actually was expecting a decent crowd because my first concert ever, 17 people showed up. And I think those 17 people were just people who were just kind of curious and just wanted to show their support for me. And yeah. And also that was my very first concert ever. And it had a lot of, because it was my first concert ever, it had a lot of first time enthusiasm. And then it was a first date. It almost felt like a first date. And then the second concert, it was the second date. And no one showed up. And it didn't make me feel bad necessarily, but it just made me realize that the people who have been in my life in my past aren't going to be the people who are going to be like my main fan base in the future. I think my main fan base in the future are going to consist of dreamers and um, maybe people or girls who have felt powerless in the past, and or maybe just anybody who felt like an alien, who felt like they didn't even belong here on Earth. No matter where they tried to fit in or who they tried to talk to, there was like a disconnect from their reality. For most of my life, I've always felt disconnected from this earthly realm, and I just felt like I wasn't meant to be here on this planet. I didn't know. And then I convinced that maybe there was just something wrong with me. But I realized in the end that there was nothing wrong with me, and that my only sole mission for being on Earth is my recording on my phone just cut out. Hold on. Okay, I'm at 11 minutes, 25 seconds. Okay, I don't know why it stopped, but anyways, yeah, I realized that my mission on Earth is, for my personal mission, is to just experience what it is to be human. And I don't care. You know what? I actually do care for me to be famous, because I feel like the more famous I become, the more people I can help and impact and inspire other people. Because the truth is that I keep cutting out. Okay, we're back. I think my phone ran out of storage. But the reason why I feel like the more famous I become, the more light I can share with other people and guidance I can share with people to not listen to their shadows and to show grace and compassion to themselves. I think in society it's so easy to feel like shit about yourself, to compare yourself to other people. And I think after having a lot of different experiences in my life, I realized that all of those comparisons and fears and judgments to yourself aren't real. They're just illusions and projections that aren't yours. You know, as babies, we're not really born with those beliefs, and every human is so powerful. You know, when I was growing up, I always saw these incredible stories of how people who had worse conditions growing up than I did were able to persevere and become something great. And it made me think, if they can do it, I can do it. And that belief always just stuck with me. And to be honest, I have been through really, really, really dark times, and I always knew that it may take some time to get to make it, and to become great, and to not only live and survive, but to thrive in my lifetime. And I knew I was going to be able to get to that point of thriving. It's just a matter of time and patience with myself. So, and if I'm going to be honest, my life is not perfect by any means right now. And I think it's important that we go through this together. I think being human is really challenging, and I think we all chose in the past life to have the life and the body and the family and the upbringing that we did. That's so crazy to think about, because if my higher self chose this life for me, then, well, it just makes me realize how strong I am. Because only a super, super, super strong person would have consciously chosen to go through the fucking hell that I've been through. And I think the hell that I have gone through in my life was to bring something that was a blessing to humanity through it, to show that maybe people can learn from what I've been through so they don't have to go through the same things that I went through, because I wouldn't wish the things I've been through on anybody. And when I said that, like the first thought that came to mind was maybe the people who put me through that, but I think the people who put me through that can also change. I think everybody has the potential to change. Some people don't want to, but those who don't want to, I know where they stand in my life. And those who do want to, I know where they also stand in my life. And I used to be a person who didn't want to change, who didn't think I could. And then it was people like Mel Robbins, it was people like Julian himself, it was people like Adam Sandler, who showed me that it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, Chapel Roan. If you have a dream and you can see that other people have done it, the only person who's stopping you from achieving what it is you want is yourself. And, I'm saying this as if what? I've made it. And the truth is I have made it. I think being alive is a blessing in itself. Sure, I don't have 1 million followers. Sure, I don't have, like, $500 million in my bank account. But that doesn't mean I haven't made it. I think just the fact that I had the audacity to just speak on a podcast for 1 hour, the fact that I'm here in a peaceful environment for like the first time in the fact that I'm living, breathing, the fact that I performed at a concert, the fact that that I woke up this morning, I made it. I think if you're alive, you've made it. You know what I mean? So, I'm grateful that even though I've been through like some pretty crazy trauma, I'm like okay. I may not have like full clarity at the moment, but what I am clear on is that I'm okay. And we're all okay in the end. And, we're like in the end of our lives, we all end up in the same place. I believe. Well, our body does, wherever. No human is better than another human. I think humans are all equal, but it's the person inside of the human is what makes it seem as though they might be better than others. But the truth is that even like we're all our own person. And I'm saying this is like you should learn from me, but I also like talk about this stuff to help myself because sometimes I forget. And when I am given the time to just let my mind speak freely, it makes me realize like how much wisdom I do actually hold and how guided I really am. Because even when my actions aren't representing the person who my higher self would want me to be, I know that my higher self is always in me, it's always with me, and it's ready to work with me as soon as I agree I want to work with it. So maybe my past self who saw that Julian himself video said said so like if my past self saw that video of Julian himself saying, record a 1 hour episode of you just talking in front of the camera, my past self would have been like, no, I'm not going to do that. That would be silly of me. Why would I do that? Who would watch that? I don't have anything important to say. But, I was just like, I was feeling so depleted today. And after I saw that video, I'm like, that's a fantastic idea. Not because I want to get views, not because I want to um, become famous, but because I want to get to know myself better. I want to get to know myself on a deeper level, and I want to be able to have meaningful connections with people. My whole life, I've always struggled to connect with people. I don't know if that's an identity that I chose consciously or what. Maybe there was still some programming or shadows hovering over me that was causing a blockage when it came to interactions with people, especially people who I really loved and admired. And I didn't know, I felt like I didn't know who to be in order to be someone they wanted to be with. I think with every person, I was always adjusting myself to be a person that they would like because I never felt like who I was authentically was good enough for the people who I liked would like. So I'm like, okay, uh, this person complains about, I don't know, the weather. So maybe I'll complain about the weather too, so we'll have something to bond over. Then that person will like me because I see they're liked by so many people, and I want that same level of likage by so many people. And and when that person complains about the weather, they have so many people who also connect over that. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's a great idea. I'm gonna complain about the weather now. Hopefully, I'll have the same results. And I think that's okay. I'm not saying that was like an exact example of like what I would do, but with the weather, but that's kind of like how my mind worked for a really long time, and I probably like still works like that to some degree, and um, just shedding those layers and just seeing who I am without like needing to think about who I need to be in order to be someone that people like is really eye-opening and awesome. And yeah, so setting yourself free from judgment is super important and powerful and freeing. And it's something that I'm learning how to do. And I feel like once I learn how to master that, then I feel like my life will change. But until I do set myself free from judgment, then I'm just going to be cocooning myself into this like shell or isolation or like not knowing who I am or what I need to be or what I need to be doing. So it's like, how do I break the cage that I've created for myself? How do I defeat myself? How do I free myself from myself? Why do I need to free myself from myself? It's like maybe because the person that I'm freeing myself from wasn't me, but it was the conditions and beliefs that I've brought up to believe from other people that I've taken on as my own. So I think it comes to understanding what it is I've taken on as my own and understanding that those negative things that I've taken on as my own weren't mine. And it's important to figure out what those beliefs are, what those shadows are, so you can get to the root of them and reprogram your mind to something that is really in alignment with who you are. You know? And that's kind of what I like to sing about because it helps me. music is such powerful therapy for me. When I was um, my so when I was in college, I I got this very um, deep burst of energy, which made me act in ways that I hadn't been normally acting for a while. For like the last from like maybe senior year of high school until that moment in college, I was just like a walking, depleted, depressed, like shell, and I was just like going through life. I didn't have friends, or my family were the only people I really talked to, and I made a very small version of myself in order to be liked by my family. And then one day in college, I just kind of felt like all of that energy that's been boiling up inside me like pop open, and I remember it was very 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 overwhelming, and I called in my mom with this very energetic state of mind that I was, and she was like, "What is happening to you? You are not okay." And the thing was that I was okay, and yeah, no, I mean, it wasn't how I would normally been acting, but I didn't do, I wasn't, I mean, I wasn't behaving like the self that I had been for such a long time. My mom called the police on me because I was rapping to her on the phone about cats, and um, she called the police, and I didn't do anything wrong. And then the police brought me to a mental hospital, and then um, I started to convince myself that maybe there was something wrong with me, and then at that time my mind did start playing tricks on me, and I felt like I was kind of operating in the astral spirit realms, but in like my physical reality, and then I didn't end up finishing. I ended my year that semester, and I took a gap year, a 1 year long gap year. And my mom came, my dad, my parents came and flew to California where I was going to school, and then I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which it turns out I don't have. Um, I found out that I'm not bipolar like much later on, and my environment is what brought on the mania, not my genetics. Yeah. And the thing with about genetics is like just because it ran in your family doesn't mean that it's sure it can be likely that you can attain it, but it can also be likely that you're in control of what you want to take on from your genetic makeup and what you want to release. And I think other people can um, learn what identities they choose to take on, whether they identify with what the doctors have told them they have. And I haven't been on medications for 2 years, and I'm better than I've ever been in my entire life, just from getting myself out of my fucking family's house. You know that your environment can bring on bipolar, your environment can bring on all of that stuff. And when you remove yourself from the chaos, you become what you are. So it makes me think maybe my parents were the ones that were bipolar, but they were just kind of operating their own ways. So anyways, I took a gap year, and um, I was put on all of these sedative medications for about a year. And I remember I was living at home, and I was sedated, I was fat, I wasn't dancing, I wasn't speaking to anybody. I was just crying every single day, just praying and crying, and like every day was just meshing into another. I was just like, I felt like I was just like like a plant, just like I did not feel in control of myself. I did not feel in control of my body. I did not feel in control of my life whatsoever. And I was just reliant on my parents for everything. And the sick part is that I believe my parents loved it. Not just liked it, but loved it. They loved the control they had over me. And, you know, all they really wanted was for me to be happy. But in order for me to be happy, like, I needed to let them go for my life. So I hope they're happy that I'm happy without them in my life. Because without them in my life, I feel at peace. And peace brings me happiness. So I took a gap year from school, and I was living at home for a while, just crying every single day. And my mom talked to my cousin, who was a doctor, and he suggested that I go to the NYU mental health clinic. So me and my mom, we went there. I checked myself in as a voluntary patient, and when I checked myself in there, I lived in this white, tiny room. It was like out of a fucking horror movie. This white, tiny room where literally you're just left alone with your mind and your thoughts. Except I wasn't left alone. I was so, like, fucking horrified with life and myself that my mom came and stayed with me. And my mom was my best friend at the time. She stayed with me in that hospital room, that white, it wasn't even like a hospital room. It had no windows. It was just a fucking white room with like a bed. And I stayed in there for 3 days until I could get a spot at the official mental health inpatient area. And then I finally got a spot there. And then I was still crying every single day just because of how out of control I felt within myself. And then I ended up staying at the inpatient facility for 4.5 weeks. And I was just living on a miracle. I'm like, the thoughts going through my head were, if I could get through this, then I could get through anything. I felt like that was like a super, probably like the lowest point of my life was that time. And I felt like if I could get through this, then I can get through anything. So I like kept knowing that I'm just gonna keep going and trust. When I say it was like bad, it was so bad. I mean, we couldn't go outside. And I think nature is one of the most healing medicines in the world. That's why I spent 3 months in Costa Rica, where everybody's medicine is nature. And that's another story that I don't think I'll have enough time for this episode, but maybe the next episode I'll talk about my experience in Costa Rica. But yeah, my 4.5 weeks at the mental hospital were crazy. They put me on more medications, like heavier doses, and which made me want to cry even more. So it's like they were giving me more medications, but I didn't have like enough. I didn't have enough instincts to like commit to myself that the medications were what I needed, and because of that, I would cry, and then they'd give me more, because I agreed that they knew best and I didn't know myself best because I was brought to not trust myself but to trust other people who, and I just had very low self-worth, and self-worth is still something that I not struggle with, but I'm working on. I think no matter where you are in life, self-worth is always something that can be worked upon. Because when you have good self-worth, then you have good relationships with other people, and there's less chaos because you know who you are, and you don't have to have arguments about things that are lower than what you want, because you know what you are worthy of. So, anyways, while I was staying at the hospital, there was this room called the quiet room, which is where you went to like scream if you needed to scream, and it was just this padded room where you could just like go crazy. I think I went to that quiet room like a couple times a week while I was there, and basically what would happen is they would see me like crying, so they'd say, go to the quiet room and take this pill. So I would say, okay, and I'd go to the quiet room and I would take the pill and I'd just stay there until I felt the pill kick in. And then once I felt the pill kicked in, then I would leave like this. Like I was literally high every single day. So, they say that drugs are illegal, but meanwhile, these hospitals are giving probably like the most illegal things that they could not do ever. And like knowing that I came out of that, I feel like a true superhero for myself. Like I don't. Wow. It makes me feel like I'm a superhero. And I am a superhero. My younger self would be so proud of me for how far I've come. And to not care about that I'm not where Chapel Road is or I'm not where Lady Gaga is, but I am where I am right now. And where I am mentally is so incredible. Like, I'm a whole new person, and I'm really proud of myself. Sure, there's so many things I don't have, but there are amazing things that I've developed and that I do have. And don't focus on what it is you don't have. Focus on the incredible things that I am, that you are, that we are. It's so easy to focus on the faults because we all just want everything to be perfect. So it's like, okay, good, we have that, but what about this? What about this? Don't focus on what it is you don't have. Focus on it is what you have naturally, what you already have within you. And the more you focus on what it is you do have, then the more that will expand, and then the more that you can get those things that you don't have. By focusing on what you do have, you can attain the things that you don't have. By focusing on what you don't have, then you'll attain more of what you don't have. So, focus on what we do have, which is yourself, which is life, which is inspiration from other people and your pets, your animals, the sun, the nature. And yeah. And while I was living at the mental hospital, yeah, so the quiet room was a big part of it. And then I had two roommates. One roommate who I lived with, the first roommate I had there, she was literally only there. Okay, don't quote me on this. But I feel like she was only there because she like needed food, and like if she was like a voluntary patient, she could get like food. So I think she was just there because like she needed a place to stay. So she just like checked herself in because she seemed fine to me. Because she would be like, "Girl, get yourself up." I love her so much. She was like, "Hey, you gonna get out of this, honey." She's like, "I don't want to see you cry no more. You're gonna get yourself out of this, okay? You need to be strong for you." She was like the best roommate to have in a mental hospital. I'm so grateful for her. She was so beautiful. She is so beautiful. I love her so much. Um, And then the second roommate I had, she had an eating disorder, and the medications they were giving me made me want to eat everything ravenously. So we made like a deal where like she would give me her food because she couldn't eat because she had an eating disorder, and I'd be like, okay, perfect, because I need food in order for me to live right now because that's the only thing that I look forward to every day. So that was like the most toxic roommate thing ever. But she was a really sweet person, and I hope that she's doing well. And anyways, wow, this is bringing back so many memories that I don't think I've like fully talked about. So I think it's good that I'm talking about it now. There was a music man, and he would come in, and um, we would have like a music day, and he would come in, and he would come in with a guitar, and he'd be like, "Is there anything that anybody would want to sing?" And I would say Alicia Keys. What's that Alicia Keys song? If I love someone, then I loving you, and I. It was like that Alicia Keys song, and we would play that song on the guitar. I think it was that song. And and then I realized that music was the only thing that brought me out of the crazy turmoil my mind was um, experiencing. I mean, like, when I wasn't singing, I was literally like pacing back and forth from the medicine, just crying, having panic attacks. And it was mainly because I didn't know how to understand and voice what it was I needed. Because I didn't know how to, like, I didn't know the power of myself. I think what it was is I knew how powerful I was, and I felt like if I used my power, then I would be like punished, or I think I just feared myself, and it was like a combination of fearing myself plus all of the advice I was just receiving from the professionals and the medications. I mean, I was in the worst state of mind ever, but it was music that brought me back to earth. Music, a lot of, like, how I always feel like I'm an alien. Music is what makes me feel like I'm human and I belong here. I don't know who I would be or what I would do without it. And when I would sing with that guitar man, all of the staff would come in and watch me sing, and I'm like, this feels right. This feels really good. So that's when I knew that I needed to pursue a career in music, whether it was EDM music, pop music, musical theater, dancing, singing, circus, performing, dancing, music, frequencies, vibration, love, belonging. Those are all words and feelings that I incorporate and listen to and feel and incorporate within myself and my music. And that's when I knew that music was my path. Music was my medicine. Music was my real medicine. There weren't any medications out there that could do what music could do for me at the time. And then I eventually, after 4.5 weeks, was able to check myself out of that clinic, of that mental hospital. And then eventually I came back and I went back to school. And then I started to realize that the end goal was for me to not be on meds. So I'm like, okay, if the goal was for me to not be on meds, why am I on them? And then my mom kept saying, I think you should just take a little something. I think you should take a little something. And every time she would say that to me, it made me like doubt myself. So I didn't know if it was better for me to just lie to her or to just be honest with her and start an argument. And that's what I felt like with most things with my mother, which is why I've kept contact with her. and cutting contact with her has been so eye-opening to how much of my identity was based on her opinions of me. So it's crazy sometimes, you know what I mean? And then I eventually just said, I'm not taking these body altering, mind altering, poison, toxic substance, and I'm going to find out the truth of what it is that I am, who it is that I am, the truth about the diagnosis that I've been having. And then that's where I felt called to Costa Rica, specifically the Caribbean side of Costa Rica, where I met some of the most incredible healers, holistic healers in the entire world. And they're so powerful, and they made me realize how powerful I am. And they made me realize how powerful humans are, and how we can change, and how we can alter our identities based on what it is we want to be and who we wish to be. I think if everybody could just realize how powerful the human mind is, then I think it would solve a lot of problems in our world today. Sometimes I think about if we're trying to have world peace, why are we trying to solve that with fighting, with war, with troops? I think in order to have world peace, each and every one of us must become peaceful within. We must stop having meaningless fights and wars, whether that's with guns, whether that's with our spouse, whether that's with our friends, whether that's within our own hearts. We need to stop the wars, stop the fighting, because the fighting gets us nowhere. If the fighting gets us nowhere, then what is it that will get us somewhere? Listening. Self-respect. Prioritizing peace. Questioning everything you think you knew about yourself, everything you think you've known about how the world works, and letting go, releasing, and opening up your mind, your heart, your body for the new, for the truth, for the peace. My ultimate goal in life is to live a peaceful life, and a life that I'm proud of, a life that feels fulfilling to me, a life that gets me excited to wake up in the morning after so many years of just dreading getting up in the morning. When getting up in the morning was the last thing I wanted to do. When just ending my life just seemed so much simpler. But I'm like, what can I do to make life worth living? And that's changing how you operate. But how do you change how you operate? I think just by asking the question out loud or in your mind to yourself is enough that's needed for an answer to come. I think with every question that exists, an answer also exists, whether we receive it or whether it's just exists energetically. And the fact that the whole world operates on a foundation of energy, a foundation of molecules, it just shows that not everything needs a physical answer, but maybe just a feeling or an energetic knowing is all that's necessary for us to change into the new life that we could ever want.
Maybe if technology didn't exist, I wouldn't dream of having like a beautiful mansion or materialistic things. However, there was a point in life where technology didn't exist and someone created the idea of beautiful materialistic mansions just with their mind, just with drawing. So perhaps I would have created something like that for myself. And perhaps you can create something like that for yourself too. So, anyways, I weaned myself off of the medication and I meditated every single day. And I actually started, well, before I started like actually sitting down in silence and meditating, I would just fall asleep listening to self-hypnosis videos from YouTube. For a lot of times I was sharing hotel rooms with my mother, and I couldn't sleep. At night, I felt so peaceful that I would just like embrace the peace of the night, which made it hard for me to fall asleep. So then I started listening to sleep hypnosis videos on my headphones, and I had a friend at the time who asked me if I meditated, and I said, yeah, I meditate. I listen to sleep meditations at night. And then there was no answer. He's not my friend anymore because he didn't make me feel seen, and he always made me feel like I was questioning myself. But the thing was, I loved that because it was familiarity with my father. So he reminded me of somebody that I loved, which is why I stay friends with him. And I wonder if he'll ever hear that or understand that, or if he even knows who he is. Probably does, based on how much he meditated. So then, and then he ended up inspiring me to start meditating. And then I had another friend who I met at a rave, and he was a very intense meditator, and he said that he meditates for 10 minutes every morning, and then, well, no, I think he said he meditates for an hour every day. Oh no, when I first met him, he said he meditated for 10 minutes, and then the second time I hung out with him, he told me that he meditates for an hour every day. And that was so inspiring to me that I started meditating for 10 minutes every day, and then I started meditating for an hour every day. And then I realized how much of my mind was operating on autopilot. And then after like a year of meditating every day, I was able to become aware of the autopilot of my mind. And there's definitely times where I do feel like my mind is on autopilot. However, now I'm at a point in life where I'm always meditating. And because I'm always meditating, sometimes it can be like very like tiring. So sometimes I need like a break from meditating. So then that's why I go onto my phone, because it gives me like just some sort of stimulation, some sort of distraction. And I think what it is with me is that I'm an artist and I'm a creator. So I think if I'm not creating, then I'm going crazy. So I think it's going to be up to me to understand that my purpose is a creator, and that my job in life is to be creating, whether that's through speaking, whether that's through writing, music, painting. My job in life is to create and just put material out there for the world, because I know there are people in this huge world who could really connect with me, and connection is something that I want in my entire life. And I know that my people are out there, and I know that I do belong here, And I think if you're a human on this earth at this moment and you're alive, then know that you belong here too. So, anyways, I'm glad that if you've made it this far, then you're officially a fan of my podcast, and you officially belong here on Earth. Can you tell I've been listening to Bashar? He's another big inspiration of mine. Yeah. I guess I'm a quiet person, huh? Well, unless I'm on stage. There's a time and place for everything. Anyways, I told myself that I would end this podcast at 4:53, and it is 4:53. So, if you're listening to this, you are loved, and you are heard, and you are seen, always, and that you have the power within your mind to be free and set yourself free, and I do as well. See you at the next podcast. Goodbye.